All right, so earlier in the show, we told you about the tariffs that Trump has now imposed on Canada, Mexico, and China. Now, moments ago, we heard from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Let's listen to that.
So today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. Encore aujourd'hui, on se voit forcé d'imposer des droits de douane de 25% sur 155 milliards de dollars américains de marchandises. 30 milliards de marchandises américaines, excusez-moi. 30 milliards de dollars de façon immédiate et dans 21 jours, 125 milliards de dollars de marchandises de plus. Today, we will also be challenging these illegal actions by filing dispute resolution claims at the World Trade Organization and through the USMCA. But in the meantime, our tariffs will remain in place until the U.S. tariffs are withdrawn, and not a moment sooner. And should these tariffs not cease, we are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures. Measures which will demonstrate that there are no winners in a trade war. Now, just like I did a month ago, I want to speak first directly to the American people. We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you. As of this morning, markets are down, and inflation is set to rise dramatically all across your country. Your government has chosen to put American jobs at risk, at the thousands of workplaces that succeed because of materials from Canada or because of consumers in Canada, or both. They've chosen to raise costs for American consumers on everyday essential items like groceries and gas, on major purchases like cars and homes, and everything in between. They've chosen to harm American national security, impeding access to the abundant critical minerals, energy, building materials, and fertilizers that we have and that the United States needs to grow and prosper. They've chosen to launch a trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American families. They've chosen to sabotage their own agenda that was supposed to usher in a new golden age for the United States. And they've chosen to undermine the incredible work we've done together to tackle the scourge that is fentanyl, a drug that must be wiped from the face of the earth. So on that point, let me be crystal clear. There is absolutely no justification or need whatsoever for these tariffs today. Now, the legal pretext your government is using to bring in these tariffs is that Canada is apparently unwilling to help in the fight against illegal fentanyl. Well, that is totally false. Let's look at the facts. Our border is already safe and secure. Far less than 1% of fentanyl flows and less than 1% of illegal crossings into the United States comes from Canada. But we acted because we know we can always do better. We responded to concerns, including from the President, by implementing an ambitious $1.3 billion border plan. A border plan that includes generational investments in new AI and imaging tools to stop the flow of fentanyl in its tracks, stronger coordination and information sharing with American agencies, along with the deployment of drones, helicopters, and additional personnel to keep our border secure. Now, a month ago, as part of an agreement with the United States that paused the tariffs, we made further commitments. We appointed Kevin Brasseau as our fentanyl czar, a man who dedicated his multi-decade career in law enforcement to combating organized crime networks and drug trafficking. We designated 7 drug cartels, sick, evil groups who cynically profit off the pain and suffering of people on both sides of the border, as the terrorist organizations that they are. And just yesterday, we launched a new joint operations partnership supported by a $200 million investment between Canada's security and law enforcement agencies, a partnership that will enhance the coordination of information and intelligence in order to thwart criminal gangs involved in the illegal fentanyl trade. And critically, our actions are working. As the U.S. Customs and Border Protection just acknowledged, there was a 97% drop in fentanyl seizures from January compared to December, to a near zero low of less than half an ounce seized in January, even with all the further enforcements and actions we've taken at the borders. In sum, we stepped up. We engaged closely and constructively with the President and his administration. We did everything we promised. We stuck to our word. And we did it because we believe in working together to protect our citizens. Now I want to speak directly to one specific American, Donald. In the over 8 years you and I have worked together, we've done big things. We signed a historic deal that has created record jobs and growth in both of our countries. We've done big things together on the world stage, as Canada and the US have done together for decades, for generations. And now we should be working together to ensure even greater prosperity for North Americans in a very uncertain and challenging world. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see. And now, to my fellow Canadians, I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough, even though we're all going to pull together, because that's what we do. We will use every tool at our disposal so Canadian workers and businesses can weather this storm. From expanding EI benefits and making them more flexible to providing direct supports to businesses, we will be there as needed to help. But Canada, make no mistake, no matter how long this lasts, no matter what the cost, the federal government and other orders of government will be there for you. We will defend Canadian jobs. We will take measures to prevent predatory behavior that threatens Canadian companies because of the impacts of this trade war, leaving them open to takeovers. We will relentlessly fight to protect our economy We will stand up for Canadians every single second of every single day because this country is worth fighting for. Les derniers mois ont été stressants.
Okay, you were just hearing from Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responding to the tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump. He said they are part of his speech, basically just saying that this is dumb, a dumb thing to do. That was his direct message to President Donald Trump. But he also told Canadians that things are going to be tough for a bit. So let's bring in CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. And Kelly, I want to ask you this. What is your response to what you just heard from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau?
So I look at this in terms of two ways, Mugo. I mean, free trade, Canada, Mexico, these are two of our biggest trading partners. And we have built so many of our various supply chains, whether it is the automotive industry or the energy industry, to have free trade going across those borders. So from one perspective, this is tough, and both sides are going to feel the pain because they're so interconnected and reliant on each other. And I think it also does send a message when there are trade agreements in place, like the USMCA, that is the US-Mexico-Canada agreement that was done during President Trump's first term, that, well, you can go back on your word. And so there is one half of me that looks at it this way. The other half of me looks at it as, look, Trudeau is correct. Canadians are going to feel pain. We will feel pain here in this country, but Canadians are going to feel it more. They are more reliant on the U.S. when it comes to trade. So much of what they export when it comes to lumber, aluminum, steel, energy does go to the U.S. So I would question Prime Minister Trudeau if I were in the room there and say, how long are you going to be able to hold out?
I want to ask you about this because fears of a trade war has investors feeling uneasy. What can you tell us about the global market reaction so far?
It has been bad. So yesterday, when President Trump confirmed that these tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and further tariffs on China would go into place as of 12:01 this morning, if you were looking at the Dow like I was, Mugo, you saw it go right like this. It just dropped. And we closed down over 600 points. I just looked at the Dow before I hopped on with you. We were down another 700 points, though the NASDAQ was flirting with correction territory. That means sort of, it is coming back. But investors were investors hate uncertainty, but more than anything, they really hated the certainty around that these tariffs were going to go into place. And that is because that is going to hit the bottom line of many retailers, many automobile companies, many tech companies. It's going to hurt consumers. I think what you had seen up to this point is investors were hoping that this was just a threat, that there was going to be a negotiation, which there still may be. These tariffs can be rolled back at any time, but that's what you're seeing from the global market right now, the knowledge that there is going to be at least some short-term pain for companies and consumers alike.
All right. Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much. Appreciate it.